in today in, I think, a child's pose. I'm kind of feeling like a child's pose would be nice. So as you get yourself settled in, let's think about kind of getting cozy for a minute. When I think about child's pose, it's like the ultimate, like curl up in a ball kind of situation, which I think is really important. I think it's a really good thing for us to be able to kind of turn in and to find these ways to steady ourselves. And child's pose really does it for me. If your knees and ankles don't really like this though, feel free to come lie down on your belly. There's no like rule that says you have to do exactly what I'm doing. I'm here to provide some guidelines, but a little bit of guidance. But at the end of the day, this is your practice. So really focusing in on how it feels in your own body as you move through today. So I was thinking that today we might practice without music. And mainly because I think especially during this time of year, we experience sensory bombardment. Yeah, like there's just so much vying for our attention. And maybe for the next hour, we will vie for our own attention. Yeah, we'll take a little bit of time to just listen to our own breath, to listen to the sounds that our body makes beyond our breath, your heart beating, joints cracking, bones creaking. Taking time just to feel into your body this morning, to this very real thing that carries you around this world. You're noticing how your lower back feels and how your lower belly feels. And how your shoulders feel here. And notice your wrists, your knees, your ankles, your hands and feet. Everything's softening just a little bit before we begin our practice of movement today. It's a time of year where I think at least my main duty to myself and to other people is to kind of be a fire tender, if that makes sense. To remember the importance of this sense of internal warmth. To be able to have enough internal warmth for myself so that I can radiate it out to others when needed or wanted, when they look a little cold. Yeah, but it starts with you. So let's take a few moments to notice how it feels to breathe, how it feels to be here. Hi, hi, Pam. And I find that having this fire to tend, like having an intention or having some kind of an idea about why you're practicing can be a really nice way to sort of fuel that fire, if that makes sense. So what do you practice for? Be it sometimes patience or for some strength. You might have an entirely different reason. So let's just connect with that for these next few breaths. Good. One more breath in. And a nice breath out. And then from here, let's lift ourselves up into just an easy seated position. I'm going to sit up on a block today. It's cold out and my hips are like telling me so. So maybe you want to sit up on a thing or maybe not, but let's take our hands and just kind of rub them up and down the thighs, pressing the heels of the hands into the inside line of the leg between your hip point and your knee. Encouraging a sense of groundedness and stability and just feeling into your physical form here. These strong legs that carry you around and hold you up. Just a few breaths. Maybe a little squeeze of the knees as you go. Good, and then we'll sit here nice and tall for a moment or two. And just take a few breaths and notice your uprightness. The middle of your belly, how it feels. And maybe even take your hand there onto your solar plexus. And connecting with this space within us that is our energizing, motivational, get it done sort of center. We enter into Capricorn season. That is like the name of the game. This sense of capability. So let's just take a few moments connecting with our capable self. And just knowing that they are in there. Good. Now let's take our hands out in front of us and interlace our fingers, and we're just going to swim our wrists around a little bit and kind of wake up our fingers, wake up our wrists. Some popping, cracking. Sounds your own body makes. If you're making those like figure eights with your knuckles, you might try to take them the other way and just see what happens. A few more breaths. And then let's press those palms forward and drop your chin in towards your chest a little bit. Feel the back of your neck. And then you might wiggle a little bit side to side in the upper body and notice your shoulder blades. Good, and then let's take the hands down to the knees and roll our head and neck around a few times. As you roll your head and neck around, these little half circles. Maybe you're more into like a big circle, pointing your chin up at some point in the rotation. And notice how your neck feels, what your jaw does, and what your tongue does. You move your head around. Right now I'm hearing way too many sounds. Should get some body work. Good. So a few more breaths. And then let's change the cross of the legs and take a little twist. So let's take that right hand onto the left thigh, the left hand back behind you, maybe even up onto your block to keep it slightly more easygoing. And without any huge pressure, without any forcing, just kind of notice how your breath turns your body. And notice how the spine moves, how the ribs move, your shoulder blades, your belly. A couple breaths more. And we'll bring ourselves back through to the center and maybe just like a little gentle fold forward if that feels okay with the hips and knees. Yeah, those hands can slide out. If you have a block nearby and you want to rest your head on the block for a moment, that might be a nice thing to do for yourself. And if you have your head on the block, rock your forehead side to side. These points, these acupressure points on our forehead are known as the doors of perception, much like the Huxley book. Thinking about how sometimes when our perception gets a little cloudy or a little bit intense, we scrunch up our faces, you know? Our forehead really shows that. And so with this little bit of massage side to side, it's almost like wiping the slate clean and offering yourself a chance at a different perspective. A few more breaths. Go ahead and lift yourself up. And just take a moment here, sitting up nice and tall. As we approach the winter solstice tomorrow morning, I want to invite you to pause as much as possible. Slow way down. Remember that time spent pausing is valuable too. A couple more breaths here. So let's transition over onto hands and knees when you feel ready. It might be nice to have your knees on the blanket for that little extra bit of cushiness and padding. And before we even start wiggling our pelvises and our spines and shoulders around, let's take notice of the hands. And at first, spread your fingers out as wide as they can go. Even if it feels a little awkward, just take a second when your fingers spread out really wide. And then allow them to come to a more comfortable kind of shape here. So maybe the fingers are still spread apart, but not super duper wide. And if the wrists feel really intense, you can always make fists, tucking your thumbs into the rest of your fingers and pressing your knuckles down. And now let's wiggle the spine around. And let's take those cats and cows, dropping your belly and rounding your back. And if you have like a set way you always breathe, you do this. For instance, like for a dozen years, I inhaled as I dropped my belly, and I exhaled as I rounded my back, and that was just what I did. It's like kind of like a habit. So I took a workshop with Leslie Handoff, and was like, let's do it the other way. And I realized, like, oh my God, I really like inhaling and rounding my back. That feels so good. And exhaling and dropping my belly. So give it a try. Or maybe just don't try to control your breathing at all and see what happens. Take a few more breaths like this. Good, and we'll come back into a neutral spine. We're going to take that left hand down to the ground, more or less underneath your face. We'll raise the right arm up, and then slide that right arm underneath, threading the needle here. I have my left hand underneath my head for a little bit of support. You can have a block under your head. You can set your head down on the ground. Good. It might be nice to connect your palms and sort of press them into each other here to find a little bit more space around your shoulder blade. And then finally, I like to have my ankles crossed, one on top of the other. It just feels like a cozy kind of thing to do for myself. You don't have to do it, but tossing it out there. Take a few breaths, allowing that right shoulder to get some room. Right side of the rib cage to open up just a little bit. Then another 3 breaths here. Right, and then from here, let's take that left hand down to the ground. And we're just going to reach that right arm up high again. A big stretch. But then let's reach it forward. So we're still up on 3 limbs here, our knees and our left hand and that right arm reaches forward. And now you might extend that left leg back behind you. And strike the balance here. And maybe we're bending that left knee and reaching back for your left foot with your right hand. Take a tiger pose. Good. A couple breaths like this. Steadying yourself or wobbling everywhere, maybe, who knows. Good. Go ahead and set that left hand down, or sorry, right hand down, set the left knee down. And we'll just sit back on our heels here for a moment. Listen to the sound of your breath. Shoulders settle away from your ears. Let your jaw and your tongue relax. And another breath or 2. All right, let's make our way back out onto hands and knees. And this time, instead of cats and cows, let's walk our hands forward so we're in a plank with the knees down. Maybe your toes are pointing up or back here or even connected. And we're just gonna slightly bend those elbows so that the elbows kind of brace the rib cage and straighten the arms again. And we'll do this a few times. So almost kind of like a chaturanga situation, but not quite. Building a little heat. Good. Notice your sense of strength here, weakness, or whatever is there. A few more breaths. And we're going to make our way back into a child's pose again. The arms up nice and long in front, just to stretch through those triceps and through the shoulders. And we'll make our way back up onto hands. With the right hand underneath your face, reach that left arm up. Take that big open stretch across the collarbones. And we'll slide that left arm underneath. And set your head down. Left side of the head touches down onto something. Now just notice your breathing and that left shoulder. Left side of the rib cage. Good. Appreciate all of the parts of you that are touching down to the ground right now. Just feel nice and steady and supported by the ground. And the last 2 breaths. All right, so we'll press that right hand back down into the floor. And then extend that left arm forward. Just kind of hold yourself here for a moment. And align that wrist kind of under the right shoulder, right wrist into the right shoulder. And then we'll send that right leg back too. You're looking for your balance, finding the center of things. So notice your solar plexus. Feel it sort of lift up away from the floor. And then we'll bend that right knee and reach back for your right foot with your left. And as you hang on to this tiger pose, take a few breaths. Good. Eventually set that left hand down, set the right knee down, and let's sit back on our heels for a moment. Tea, drink your water. And just simply listen to the sound of your breath. Taking a moment to pause here. Another inhale and nice exhale. And then let's make our way back out onto hands and knees. We're going to slide our hands forward. And you might be in plank with the knees down, or you might tuck the toes underneath and up into a plank. Good, which is just going to be like a quick little thing on our way back to our first down dog. So take your time. Put there in the ways that you like. But taking these little moments to feel strong, build strength. And here in your down dog, really let the head drop down. Good. No matter how chatty your mind, just let your body be a bee. Feel those hips lifting. Feel settling. Just a few more breaths here in your down dog. Shaking your head yes or no. Shaking it yes, what are you saying yes to? Shaking it no, what are you saying no to? Good. And then let's take our time to walk the feet up towards the hands. We're going to hang out here in the standing forward fold for just a little bit. I like to kind of move my hips side to side, sway a little bit. Maybe you want to hold still and grab a hold of the backs of your calves. Maybe you want to grab a hold of your elbows, soften the knees. So let's just take a little bit of time with this. So feeling length from the back of the body, this part of you that's really strong has to really hold us up. Just for now, let your head drop down. Good. And then very, very slowly, let's lift ourselves all the way up to standing. Your head's been down for a while, so take your time. Good. As you lift yourself up to standing, we're going to find mountain pose. Palms pressing together at the heart. Good. And lean into your right foot. Lean into your left foot. And let your upper body kind of sway along with your pelvis. And back into the heels. And then forward into the toes. And then find center. And let's take 3 good breaths here. Let's begin our sun salutations. Inhale, reach those arms up. Tiny little back bend. Exhale, dive forward. Good. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plant your palms, step back. Let's take a high plank here, or a forearm plank if your wrists would prefer that. Or plank with the knees down. Good, you might choose to hold on to this plank for a good long while. Great, you might decide to lower yourself down to chaturanga. Maybe you're lifting up your heart to a cobra or upward dog, and then coming back to down dog. This morning, I'm just taking a plank and then dropping my knees and taking a child's pose. Good. So thinking about fueling your internal fire instead of potentially burning big and burning out. What is the balance we need to strike? A few breaths like this. And then eventually we're going to find a downward facing dog again. So as you get to your down dog, just lift way up onto the tips of your toes. Good. And then slowly start to settle the rest of your foot down. Notice your arches, notice your heels, your ankles, calves and shins. Backs of the knees. Your whole hamstring area. Head drops down. And then let's take a look in between the hands and we'll bring your feet on up to the top of the mat. Stepping, walking, hopping. Let's inhale for a halfway lift, pressing your hands into the tops of your thighs. Good. Exhale, forward fold. Right, we'll lift ourselves all the way up, nice and slow, reaching those arms overhead, lifting that heart a little bit, and then let's circle those arms down. Exhale, fold forward. Good, breathe in, halfway lift. Exhale, plant your palms, step back, high plank pose. Good, and maybe this is where you stay, and then you find child's pose or down dog. Maybe you want to find your chaturanga. Lowering the chest, and your cobra, lifting the heart. On your way back, give yourself a little bit of time to move here. And we'll meet back in down dog, maybe in like 7 or 8 breaths. From your downward facing dog, we're going to feel that head dropping down again. The last time we took a little trip up through our lower body. This time, let's notice the palms of the hands and your wrists, and your fingers like little grips, forearms and elbows, and then upper arms and shoulders. Notice the center of the chest and the place in between your shoulder blades. And then a big breath in here and out. And then let's look in between the hands. Bring your feet on up to the top of the mat. Step, walk. And as you get there, inhale, lift up halfway. And this time, let's take the hands onto the lower back. Good. Hands are stacked, maybe. Elbows wide, collarbones broad. Notice those shoulders. And then think about leaning into the inner edge of your foot and the outer edge of your foot, essentially turning your femurs and your hip sockets a little bit. Kind of internally and externally rotating those thigh bones here in the halfway lift. And a big breath in. And then exhale and settle yourself forward. And inhale, slowly come all the way up. Reach nice and high. Big stretch. And exhale, dive yourself back down. Good, breathe in, halfway lift. Exhale, plant your palms. And one more time, let's step back into this high plank pose. Now, if you like side planks, that is your thing. You might drop your heels off to one side. Maybe you keep both hands connected. Maybe one of your hands comes up to your hip or reaches up. Maybe you drop one of your knees down. Good, but just taking a moment to feel that strength at the side of your body. And when you're ready, come back through to the center. Plank probably feels pretty good right now. And then over to the other side. Good, so just finding that bit of steadiness in this really kind of a difficult feat. Side plank is not easy. Good, you'll know when you're done. Your wrist will tell you, your shoulder will tell you. Bring yourself back through to the center and find your flow through, which might be dropping the knees, sinking back into child's pose, curling up in a ball. Yeah, maybe it's the whole chaturanga. Good. Remember, this is tending your inner fire, your inner fire. Take a few more breaths wherever you are. Then from here, let's find downward facing dog. And from your downward facing dog, we focused on the lower body, we focused on the upper body. Now let's focus on that space between our shoulders and our hips. Okay, allow the shoulders to be strong here. Press the floor away from the hands. And then feel that solar plexus area sort of lifting. Feel your lower belly kind of scoop in and lift up and back. Good, nice long torso, nice long spine. As you inhale, look forward. And then exhale, bring both of your feet up to the top of the mat. Good, halfway lift here. In your halfway lift, you might stretch your arms out alongside you and engage those muscles in the middle of the back, those dignity muscles. Yeah, you might squeeze your triceps in towards your upper back. Good. Exhale, fold yourself forward. Good. And we're going to grab a hold of two of our blocks. And we're going to keep our right foot forward, but step our left foot back about halfway on the mat. So both of your feet are going to be toes facing forward. Both of your heels are connected. Maybe you're up on the high setting of blocks. It's sort of a halfway lift. Or maybe you're lowering your chest down towards that right thigh. This is a big opening for the back of that right leg. You press your right big toe down and forward. And then press your left heel back and down. Just settle in here and breathe. And then from here, let's lift ourselves up about halfway, keeping our legs just the same. And we'll transition into a revolve triangle pose. So that right hand's going to come onto your lower back. And just think about running across those collarbones. That's the first place to go here, while keeping your lower body more or less steady. Maybe you're raising that right arm up. Good. Wiggle your jaw around. Soften your eyes. And a couple deep breaths. Right, and then we will set that right hand down. We're going to slide the left foot back and drop that left knee down. Let's wiggle that right foot out to the side a little bit. And I'm in sort of like a high version of this lizard pose. My hands up on blocks. It's giving me a lot of space in the front of that left hip. Another nice place to go is down. So maybe you want to lower forearms to the ground, drop the head down. This places a little bit more of the emphasis to this pose on your right hip, the back and the outside of your right hip. So what does your body need? What does it prefer here? And we're just going to take a few deep breaths like this in this lizard pose. And find this lizard pose. Really notice how your breath is behaving. Did it get a little quicker? Is it smooth? Is it choppy? And let's try to slow the breath down for the last 3 breaths. Good. And then from here, if you're down on your forearms, back up onto your feet. We're going to send that right leg back behind, come up onto the left knee, and just give it a good little stretch. And you might bring the knee to the nose a few times. And extending that leg long, and then bringing that knee in and rounding the back. Good. And then eventually we're going to make our way into either a child's pose or a downward facing dog. So just take your time and find the shape that'll feel like a nice pause for you. Then if you're in your child's pose, maybe you're tucking your arms underneath you, or even wrapping them around you. Good. A few breaths. Right, and then very slowly, let's make our way back up onto hands and knees, and then into your downward facing dog. Good. Think about rocking your hips side to side a little bit here. Stretching out to the sides of your body. Breathe in and look forward. And then exhale and bring your feet on up to the top. Good. As you inhale and halfway lift here, you might extend those arms out past your head. And see what happens. And send those hips back, sitting bones back, I should say. And swim your arms alongside you and interlace your fingers behind your back. And then let's fold forward and press the knuckles up. Now let the head drop down. Maybe it wobbles a little bit. And if your shoulders are feeling a little glum in this particular shape, you can just drop your arms down, let them rest. Eventually, we'll all drop our heads down. We'll find our blocks. And we'll keep that left foot forward and step the right foot back this time. And let's come into this pyramid pose. It might be nice to stay lifted halfway. Maybe the hamstrings on your left side are super flexy, and dropping your head down feels like a good thing. So do what you can to loosen rigidity in the places where you really don't need to be holding it, like your face, like your fingers, like your toes. And maybe your belly, let your belly relax a tiny touch. Good, and then we will all make our way up to this halfway lift kind of thing. And I'm up here on the tallest setting of my block with my right hand down. I'm gonna take my left hand up to the lower back, broaden those collarbones. Yeah, and then maybe the left hand lifts up. The revolve triangle. And once you've twisted yourself into this shape, just bring your breath back. And another nice breath in and out. All right, and we'll drop that right hand down, or sorry, left hand down, and slide the right foot back. And drop that right knee down. And maybe your hands stay up on these blocks and you're lifting up nice and high and feeling that big stretch through your right hip flexors and your deep core muscles. Maybe you prefer lowering down. And maybe you want a little bit of both. Take your time. We'll spend about 10 breaths with this lizard and different expressions of lizard. Lizard always gets up a little slithery. Steps from side to side for me. But maybe you want to be still and steady. Low to ground. And notice what parts of you are touching down onto something. Parts of you that are lifting away. Your nice full breaths here. Just a few more. All right, and then from here, let's lift back up onto our hands. Find a hands and knees kind of situation with your hands and your right knee. And then we'll send that left leg out nice along between and just hold it up here for a moment. And maybe roll that ankle around a little bit. And then knee to nose. Just a few times here. Good. Eventually go ahead and set that knee down. And yeah, maybe it's time for a little bit of child's pose again. Good. Maybe you want to roll up onto the top of your head here and take a rabbit pose. Good. If your cervical spine is a healthy thing, it can be really nice to come up and just place that little bit of pressure on the top of your head. Maybe you're even opening your eyes and looking at the room around you. And imagining the ceiling is the floor and the floor is the ceiling. And just a couple more breaths. And then very slowly, let's come on up and out of this. We're going to come on to hands and knees. We're going to widen our knees a whole lot. Then we're going to tuck our toes underneath, kind of shift back into a squat. So I have one more standing up thing in mind, and then we'll spend most of the rest of the time on the floor. And in the standing up thing, it kind of starts from the squat. So it might be nice to sort of rock around here. Notice how your ankles feel, and how your knees feel, and how your hips feel. Good. Hands can be on the ground, up on some blocks. Or maybe you're even bringing your hands to your heart and finding this sense of balance as you rock from side to side. And then we'll make our way into a standing forward fold from here. Let the arms drop down, let the head hang heavy. Good. Let's go ahead and grab our left big toe with your peace sign fingers and your thumb. And then we're going to rock over into the right foot and begin to stand up In this balancing pose, your left knee bent to the side of your chest. Standing up feels really tricky today. That is okay. Good. Yeah, use things. Grab your couch, grab a wall. Stay here for a moment, maybe with that knee bent. Or if you want to extend that leg out in some way, you might do that. Maybe the knee stays really bent, but the foot sort of moves away from you. Maybe that leg gets really long. Who knows? We'll just spend a moment like this. Right hand could be on your heart or your hip or even reaching up. And then we'll just fold ourselves forward again, like nothing ever happened. Let's set that left foot down. Yeah, just give yourself a little wiggle. Yeah, those little cleansing wiggles. Your head wobble around. Your shoulders wobble around. Good. Maybe your knees, your hips, your thighs, a little shake. Okay, we're going to grab a hold of the right big toe now with your right key side fingers and thumb. And just know that one side is going to be different than the other side. So it's going to see what happens here. I am bracing my left hand on my left thigh as I can. Good. Notice this side. Maybe it feels good to stay here with the knee bent. Maybe you want to extend the leg, maybe not. Ooh. Good pause today. Just a few breaths wherever you are. Yeah, and then you know the drill. Set your foot down. Fold yourself forward, give yourself a little wiggle. And then wobble that head around. And before we move on to our back, ooh, no, I'm wrong. Before we move on to our belly, let's take one more squat. One more nice squat here. And in the squat, you could choose to stay, maybe pressing your palms together at the center of the chest, pressing your elbows into those inner knees and thighs. You might take your hands to the ground, bring yourself forward into something balancy, like a little crane pose. And maybe none of this. Just knowing that eventually we'll all end up on our bellies. So take the time you need to get there. Maybe you just want to like drop your knees and wow, make contact. Maybe you want to shift back into a down dog and come through a plank and lower down. Really, it's up to you. Yes. Oh, but the belly feels nice, at least to me at this point. So let's just take a moment to appreciate the ground again. Which I know, sometimes we forget how important it is to feel the connection between ourselves and the ground. We get sort of up in our body and up in our head. Everything's a bit of a whirlwind up there. But for the most part, the ground is this very steady place, this very steadying place. So wherever you are, just feel what's underneath you. Notice your heart beating against the ground. Especially if crow is just something you gave the world. Good, and then from here, we're going to draw our big toes in towards each other, legs nice and long behind. I'm going to adjust my flannel so the knot is not pressing into my belly. And let's just lift up our feet and our knees here with our legs nice and long. So this half locust. I have my arms tucked under my chest. You might have them some other place on your head. But really focusing in on engaging the glutes, engaging the tops of your thighs, lifting. Good, and reaching back through your toes. Good, and then when you're ready, go ahead and set that down. Shake your pelvis side to side. Give it a good shake. Yeah. All right, and then from here, we're going to lift up the upper body only, so pressing the tops of the feet into the ground. You might reach your hands back behind you. Good. Feel your lower ribs touching down, the belly touching down, and those muscles of the middle of the back really kind of like drawing in and pressing down to lift you up. And another breath here. And then just let yourself lower down. And give yourself another little shake if that feels right. You're welcome to take a full locust pose. If you want to, with your feet lifted and your arms reaching back. Your shoulders are up, your knees are up. And your chest is lifted away from the ground. Noticing where you balance on your body. This part of you that almost never touches the ground. Not touching the ground. And another breath or two, nice and strong, squeezing those glutes, lifting those feet, and then go ahead and really set yourself down again. And give yourself a little shake. And let's slide that left knee up towards the left side of the chest. And then we're going to take that right arm and slide it underneath the left. And then just open that upper body up, taking the left arm back behind you. So we're coming into a twist. It might be nice to place a block under your left knee or lower leg, ankle. Maybe you want to bend both of your knees. That's a thought here too. Notice the sound of your breath again. Another breath or two. And then let's roll onto our backs. Might be a nice time for constructive rest. Letting your knees drop in towards each other, hands on the belly. If you like a happy baby pose, that's another nice place to go here after a twist. Lengthening the spine, reaching up for your feet or the backs of your thighs or your knees. Take a moment in the middle here to reset a little bit. Find some symmetry in your asymmetrical body. What looks closest to symmetry. And when you feel like it's time, we're gonna extend that left leg out nice and long on the ground. Let's just drop that right knee over the midline. I always end up scooting my hips off to the right a little bit. If you want to do a little hip or shoulder scoot to support comfort in your back. If you want to bend both of your knees and drop them to the left. And just do what you can to breathe here. Last few breaths on the side of your twist. And when you feel like it's time, we'll find a final shape. So could be your constructive rest or shavasana. Maybe you want to take a block under your pelvis for a restorative bridge pose. A gentle inversion and slightly invigorating restorative pose. Maybe you want to sit up in meditation. There's really no wrong way to finish your practice. It's just a personal choice. Sometimes in these darker days, I'm not sure how well Shavasana serves us at the end of the morning practice. Sometimes it's nice to have that energy. Be in an uplifted kind of position, take it with you. But just know that resting, laying down, always, always, always a valid and wonderful choice. So do what resonates the most with you. There's nothing here but you and the breath in your body. There's no problems to solve right now. Maybe a little bit of self-observation to attend to. Noticing, acknowledging the inner stuff. The textures of what's there. Moment to bring your consciousness back to your breath. To the way the breath feels inside of your body, how it moves your body, and the life it takes on when it becomes part of you. And as you release your breath, sending out whatever needs to be sent out. It could be things that you are ready to let go of, or maybe it's all of that wonderful warmth that you just built. Sending a little bit out into the world around you. And just take a few moments to wiggle your body around. Maybe it's the vigorous wiggle, maybe it's the slowest wiggle of all time. Gently rocking your head side to side. Maybe if you're sitting up, you take a slow fold forward for a few moments. And if you are reclining, it might be nice to take a big stretch, giant reach. And then curl yourself up into that ball again, taking some of that energy for yourself. Yeah, and we'll all come to sit up and just kind of look at each other for a second before we go about our day. Oh, I see you over there, Nadine. Hi, Pensley. Let's take our hands onto our heart, lift the heart up, drop the collarbones. And maybe just a little bit of like this self-massage here. In our last week of teacher training, yeah, maybe you were there, but this idea that like we don't often like really touch and manipulate this part of us so much, and it can feel a little tender at times because of various reasons, but maybe we can apply a little bit of our own kindness and our own care to ourselves here. And eventually let your head drop down and in towards your hands and towards your heart and all of your best wishes for yourself and everybody else. Thank you for coming. Yeah, we really appreciate you being here.